Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome everyone to the 18th Annual Growing Online Learning Conference presented by Illinois Community College Online. The theme for the 2026 conference is Designing for Access, OER, and the Future of Online Learning. We hope that this year's conference offers you ideas and strategies for developing a culture for open education and engaging in OER development and implementation. I'm Holly Ray, Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning at McHenry County College. Thank you for being with us today. UCO would like to thank Heartland Community College for providing the web conferencing platform for use in this year's conference. Please note that captioning is available for the conference sessions. This is our conference schedule. For the 3 days, it's on the screen. It can also be found at the conference website at yoco.net under Resources and Events. Recording of these presentations and handouts will be available at the conference site on yoco.net following the conference. The link to attend the live sessions will be found on the conference website and in your registration confirmation email. If you have any questions on accessing the sessions, please contact Jeff New at jeff.new@illinois.gov. A note for our participants, we ask everyone to please stay muted when not speaking. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. Our presentation this afternoon is OER work at Illinois Community College panel discussion with Joseph Wachter, Joseph Wachter from Harper College and Stephanie Whalen from Harper College as well, and Ann Humphrey from McHenry County College. Thank you to our panelists. To start, our question is, how did you get started and establish a program structure and incentives? I'll defer that to Harper.
All right, thanks, Holly. So this we started at Harper in 2019. This was before I was in this position as part of the OpenStax partner institutions. And that kind of got the ball rolling. We had a trustee who was very excited about OER and started this program. So at that time, a OER course transformation grant program was developed by a committee where faculty could apply to get funding to convert their courses from commercial materials to OER materials. Initially, there were 3 levels that they could apply of grants that they could apply for. Adopt, where they would just take a already existing OER as is. Adapt, where they could combine multiples, and then build, where they could build their own. And the compensation for those were $500, $1,500, and $2,500, and that's per person on a committee. So if you had a large class, you could have multiple people working on that stuff. And then the committee would evaluate the applications and prioritize those with the greatest savings for students. And as long as the savings were the 3 semesters savings seemed to be larger than what they were asking for, those would generally be approved. At first, it was a very popular program. Lots of faculty used those grants to help convert their courses. And that's how we got started.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. And Ann, how does McHenry do?
Yeah, thanks. Joe, I could say like ditto to much of what you said there. We started summer of 2017 with a formal project, which we called Textbook Camp. And everyone came for a week, and we had a week-long, some training, but mostly just work time. And that started at that point because we had a new president, and it really was just a pet project of his. And he talked about it all the time, and he threw money at it. Now, I wrote there one early adopter, 1998 to 2017. That was me. And I had almost completely lost hope when our new president got here. And working on almost 20 years, I could not get anyone's attention. Really. They were like, how funny you are. You're so skilly with this idea. This is a newspaper article from 2012. I got attention from the local press before my own colleagues. But when we got support from the top, everything changed. And I just put some stats here. As of fall 2 years ago, I don't have fresher stats. We have over 50% of faculty participating. We've had 84 courses go through our project process, but I just had to count, and we have 568 courses using ICM. So that is just a crazy number. And I keep talking about it, because yeah, it really took off. It became part of the culture pretty quickly. One thing we did recently was we made this archive of the courses that had gone through the project. And Holly, that's that link there, high performers, because I just wanted to show some of what people have done, just the list like of participants, especially Holly, I wanted to click on business, the business department. So we have some departments that have done like almost all their courses over to ICM. And then we have a lot of departments, like business has done almost all their courses. Then we have other departments that just have done one or two that are like the high courses. Math has done almost all their courses, and they were initially kind of resistant. So it's sort of a lot. I had an administrator say, can we make an archive? And I was like, oh, that's a lot of stuff. But this is what we got to. So we did have a good cultural takeoff. Thank you, Holly.
Okay, next I'm going to turn to Harper again. What has worked well to get faculty engaged?
Well, I think like Joe was saying, initially we had some groups and some individuals working, but lately it seems like teams have been really successful. So, for example, we just had a group of math faculty present at our faculty retreat last year about courses that they created OER for and maintain them together. I, not only as a faculty developer, but also as a faculty member, have been involved too. So I put two of them that I've been involved with that we've been using press books for. So we've got one that if you click on the link in the chat, you can go to our Pressbook site. The one I want to highlight is the first year seminar. The first year seminar text came together a couple summers ago, and we had a broad team of faculty and student affairs, support people and leaders come together and author a lot of original content, adapt some content that Joe helped us find that was available, in other schools' first year seminar, OER. And then we also put photos of our actual students that we were working with, doing different activities for the course, and then out at their jobs and things like that. So it turned out to be really useful because we can link it right into the course shell, and we can actually go in for each course outcome in each module and link directly to the chapter. Another one I thought you might be interested in that's listed there is the Equity Literacy Project. So this is both for faculty and staff to use as a resource about terminology and concept and research related to equity issues and initiatives. For example, a simple term like microaggression can be misunderstood if people don't know the rationale and the research behind it. So those are examples of things that we want to have a shared lexicon so that we can move those conversations along a little bit when we're figuring out what to do. But it also is being used in some classes, like an English class, for example, where students are writing some narratives or doing some research related to some of the resources in there. So not all of our faculty or groups are using press books, but a lot of them are. But I would say what's really working well right now is getting people together in small groups or teams within their department or across departments to work and update these things together. And Joe's made it possible through thinking, long term to not only have these grants available, but to have revised grants available so that after a few years, the groups can come back together and get funding again and get support from the faculty development coordinator, who is Joe, to update their materials and make sure things are accessible and things like that.
Yeah, when I took over the program from Dave Braunschweig, who retired, who was really the one who started it, the things that I was hearing that people needed and the barriers to getting them to adopt these materials was, one, having some kind of an easy to use system to collate these materials. We use Blackboard as our course management system, or learning management system at Harper, and it's very kind of closed and it's difficult to have public things and shareable things. So we were able to get funding to have a Pressbook server, and that's been really helpful to be able to direct faculty to show them how easy it is to put content into there, to clone books from other Pressbook servers that they can then edit, and that keeps track of authorship. And then, as Stephanie said, the other things we just heard was it was too much work. We're asking too much for the funding for what they were wanting to do, and so encouraging the team approach where you can break that work up into each person taking a manageable chunk, but still get appropriate funding was another big piece there. And then the ability to revise as well, as Stephanie said.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Steph. So Anne, could you please share with us how MCC has moved faculty from interest to adoption? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I was being a good girl and muting. I would again say ditto because, yeah, we did have some big teams and like they each got a stipend, especially in some of those math courses. And, over time, like argued for higher stipends. We argued at one point and got partial stipends for partial use. I said it's still a win if only like 50% of the course is made into innovative course materials. We have not emphasized something like Pressbooks. We've instead very much left it open to people using anything. In fact, that's why we say innovative course materials. OER, if people like look that up and they get caught up on the 5 W's, it's kind of limiting. It's very limiting. So we have people who are building out like everything that they're writing in Canvas. We have people using standard OER books, and everything in between. So it's, we try to keep it as wide open as possible. We actually encouraged instructor created materials. We divided the training into 2 steps, which is why I put intro course there, which Holly, we don't really need to show, but I could just describe that we made a course that was like for everyone, and they would just get some clock hours for doing it or a stipend if they were adjunct. And we just said, even if you hate ICM and you're never going to do it, you should do this course. It's just about awareness. It's not hard. It only takes a couple hours, etc. That helped. We divided. After a while, we stopped doing the camp during COVID, and we just made the training online, and we made the timing more flexible. So they didn't have to finish within a semester. That helped. Our college started doing high impact practices, and ICM got named in a high impact practice, which was excellent because then we were on the agenda at all the faculty meetings. So I think a big piece of the success was just always staying right up front, like right in the conversation, so that people would just think of it, and especially when they were making a new course. I even do obnoxious things, like I often sit right up front at all faculty meetings, so whoever's talking sees me, and then they remember ICM, and they say something. So every little bit counts. And making the training as easy as possible and the process as easy as possible was key.
Thank you, Anne, for your explanation how MCC approaches OER. Yes, here on campus, we call it ICM, Innovative Course Materials. Thank you, Anne. So now I'm back to Harper. Turn to Harper. So please describe the progress you have made, including challenges, goals, and recommendations.
Yeah, I can start with that. So the biggest challenge, COVID, of course, was huge. I think we've all kind of seen that just nobody had the bandwidth to take on extra projects or really do anything else. So we saw a big drop off then. The other thing was the other challenge that we've had over time is we had a lot of excitement with all of the people who were really into this up front. And then once those people adopted OER and went through the grant program, then there was just kind of the leftover people who might have been resistant or whatever. So we've had a lot of success. We now have about 40% of all of our course sections as no cost to students, and that's been steadily increasing, and we want to keep working on that. Our big wins, as we've mentioned a little bit, some of these big courses like FYS, like some of the big math courses, and then the existing challenges or the existing challenges seem to be kind of trying to get into those departments that have a somewhat entrenched resistance, often due to some bad information about, where they looked at materials years ago and there wasn't anything good. And so they just kind of have this assumption that it's all not good or not appropriate. We have really strong academic freedom protections in our contract at Harper, which both helps us in that individual faculty have the contractual freedom to decide on their own course materials, and that cannot be really messed with. But it also means that people who are really holdouts for these things additionally don't have that pressure to convert. So I guess that kind of goes both ways. It's definitely been more visible over the years, and I think most faculty now know that we have these programs, that I'm the person to look for. Like Anne said, I get up in front in faculty meetings. We had a weird kind of a culture at Harper where there's a lot of like shtick in meetings where people do skits and like things like that. So we did like a song about OER a couple of years ago, and that was a big, it got people's attention. And then new faculty is a big opportunity for us as well. So we make sure to present to the new faculty when they do their orientation and keep kind of checking in with them as some of the more set in their ways folks exit. We have some opportunities to really talk to people who are excited about innovation and excited about these opportunities. Stephanie, anything else that you would add there?
Well, aren't you going to now sing a little bit of the song for them?
I have not, but I think it's on the website if somebody wants to hunt for it. I'm pretty sure it's on the Academy website.
I'll find it, but just as a hint, it was set to the tune of When You Wish Upon a Star, but it was when you switch to OER. And actually, Joe is a guitarist and a musician, and it was a beautiful rendition.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Wow. How fun. I would love to. I would definitely search for that. Thank you for sharing. That's very interesting. Now, Anne, could you please tell us about what challenges didn't you anticipate?
Well, yeah, I think that is interesting. The COVID, of course, slowed everybody down. This year, the accessibility requirements that are coming from the federal government has everyone on our campus is working on that, and a lot of faculty members are fairly overwhelmed, especially if they used a lot of PDFs or had other problems in their courses that were time consuming. And that all of that, no one could anticipate. And it did really lower our participation. And I feel like now we need to get everybody back on board. Another problem we had was everyone was interested in knowing how much we saved. And there were estimates made for the first several years. up to about 3 million in savings. But then during COVID, we just totally lost track of that. And even what we had been doing was like self-report, so it was flawed. And then we started to have the problem that a lot of new courses were built from scratch at ICM, never had a textbook. So the way we were calculating savings was we eliminated these textbooks, but then we were like, it took off so good in our culture, it took off so well that, we had a lot of courses that just never had a textbook. And so there was nothing to compare. And even if you did have that, over time, textbook costs go up and they change and there's different books. And it's not like someone who's teaching with ICM is picking out new texts, right? So I actually have had a research request in for quite a while, like, hey, can you guys in institutional research figure out how to make an estimate regarding this? Because we know it's an impressive number. It was 3 million 5 years ago, so it has to be good. Can we get to that? So that was unexpected, how hard that was to, estimate or track. And another problem we've had, which is just kind of a bizarre problem, is how many people just made their ICM courses without ever going through a project. I can't even tell you. One whole department, they made like 15 new courses and never did a project. So they didn't get any of those stipends that they could have got, but more than that, didn't do our training or our peer review process. And so we're like, we kind of want everyone to go through that. Like, we think that will be helpful and maybe make the courses even better, right? And that happened several times that I became aware of, where people were like, oh, was I supposed to do like something official? I just did it. Okay. So ultimately, after I reported this to administration, we got a new course request form, which was across the college. We didn't have that before. Every department just kind of did it. And on that request form, you were supposed to self-report their HIPs that you're using. Woof, all of a sudden we had a much better handle on how many courses there were, and it was way more than we could have ever dreamed. And not just us, but other HIPs had those records. So that was all really good. Although even right now, we know that not everyone uses the form. If they have a real small department, they just circumvent that system. So I didn't really expect some of the record keeping to be as hard as it is, or like just documenting how much has been achieved was a challenge that I don't, maybe other people would expect, but I didn't expect. I thought we'll just keep a list. It'll be fine. Anyway.
Thank you, Anne, for sharing this. So the next question for our panelists is, how do you generate interest and continue momentum?
Yeah, so we have a few tools that have worked well for us. I know that the predecessor to Joe in Joe's position of OER coordinator would always talk about how he was just going around campus and trying to, find people in their offices and talk to them about OER, but it was a very soft promotion. And we've continued to find ways to kind of get the word out and give testimonials. Like I mentioned, we had a whole group of faculty present just as a little portion of our faculty retreat last year. The theme was on, our culture of collaboration, and those math faculty talked about how they work together so that the labor of creating and updating, doesn't fall on just one person or two people. And so that was really effective. We also have a regular newsletter that goes out from our Teaching and Learning Center. Our Teaching and Learning Center is called the Academy for Teaching Excellence. So you'll see we took that same piece that was in the Inside Harper that went to all campus, and we put a little bit of different spin on it by showing, there's a picture bottom left of Joe working with our first year seminar OER group. And that was in the summer. We had regular meetings for that. And then in the bottom right, there's a picture of students using OER in class for English 101. And so we just try to keep reminding faculty that it's there, but also when people come to us with a need. So right now, for example, we have someone from Health Careers who came to us and said, I really want to help students with study skills and academic coaching. I don't know what to do. And years ago, we had taken materials that faculty were printing through Pearson as a custom published book for a learning framework course. And we had put them all, into documents and then into Blackboard. And now, she's interested in partnering and getting a team together to make sort of a study skills guide for self-directed learning for students that we can use across the curriculum. So when people come to us with a variety of needs, if it seems like something that could be an OER project or some other type project, some aspect of our work is to kind of steer them toward those opportunities. So even though this faculty who teaches some of our most vulnerable students in the CNA program and other programs where, students really need a lot of academic coaching, now she's excited about building an OER that they can use in their courses and give students some of those resources and link right into their shells. You'll also notice that in this piece, if you did click on it through either Inside Harper or the Academy News, we are also really candid about what are the continuing concerns. So even though OER is working well for some faculty and in some departments, there have been departments or faculty who have felt like what they would be able to put together or what is available in the variety of OER repositories that Joe can share with them, doesn't meet the needs of their students best. Or for some courses, like there are some math programs or chemistry, for example, where they really do rely on some of the multimedia or homework programs that, do provide remediation and support for the students, and they don't feel that they're able to find or create an OER that would be as useful. So those are things we mentioned in that piece, just so we are representing the full gamut of what faculty are concerned about and showing that it does work in some cases, but it isn't something that we're saying everybody should do if it's not right for them and their students. And then there's also, I think everybody's probably seen research articles that talks about how important it is for students to be able to annotate and handwrite notes when they're working with texts. So one of the things that we're doing is just encouraging faculty, if they are using digital text, to make students aware of how they can print sections of that to mark and annotate. They have a generous amount of copies that they can print in the library. Some instructors have even worked with our print shop to make low-cost versions of printed books where it's particularly important. But then also students are taking notes and learning some note-taking strategies that they can do with a digital text where instead of typing notes, they are still, handwriting notes. So there has been some effort to kind of address some of those concerns that are really valid. When you go to all digital, what about students who need to text mark and annotate and take notes and things like that? And people are finding ways to make it work.
Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing this. For our audience, Stephanie put in the link to the newsletter in the chat. So if you want to, click and to see more about the news, it was really impressive stuff, what you have done. So, Anne, for colleges just starting, what is the very first step they should take?
So as I mentioned, our program got off the ground when we had really strong administrative support, not just like the obvious things like stipends and making a committee and, but mentioning it when they gave their addresses and saying how interesting it was and like getting it in the board report and everything like that. Encouraging institutional research to help, getting it in the dean's assessments, so that when the faculty reviews come around, it's one of the things that's addressed. Are you doing high impact? Are you doing this? Since ICM was, started like the first high impact and before we got high impact as a goal, all of that was happening real consistently and people on board. More than once, I went to the meeting where the deans all meet and I I tend to get like super excited. I remember one time I even like jumped up and down a little bit and they all were like, okay, we got it. It's good. Yes, it's very important. Um, and all of that I think was really helpful. One thing that I wanted to show, and I just putting the link to this page that I wanted Holly to show is
Okay.
we just made a one pager that summarizes the program that's on the Center for Teaching and Learning. And I think it was key to just get that one page. My previous chair had made the page, but then what I added at the bottom, um, after some discussion with the committee, so Holly, if we can just scroll down, is like the talking points, okay? So it says here, definition and advantages. And these were things that I was just saying all the time. But once I got them written here, then I brought this up at several meetings and I was like, this is what it is. And it just is in a few points, right? What is it and why do it? And one thing that I personally really push is this is not just about cost savings. This is just better pedagogy, almost always. And yes, there are some people who cannot do it. I would never say every course can do it. And we even have two programs that can't use anything except the book that the accreditors allow. Okay, so there's no way they can't. I mean, they could maybe do a little supplementing, but that's it. So, but just to make it like crystal clear, like on this very visible place, like this is why to do it. And in advantages, I put first, of course, lowers cost, because we all know that's the most important. But then all the reasons too why it's just good pedagogy, like it familiarizes students with more different sources and different voices, and that way you're building in some information literacy skills. There's more variety there. There's more currency often because most of well, at least for me, ICM was always about using, very dependable websites and my own stuff that I wrote and things from providers who are out there, not necessarily doing 5W OER. I just I just thought that was a really good step that I would encourage anyone to do. Like put it right out there. Like this is the reason why.
And I know as part of the committee, ICM committee, could you please share briefly about our peer review process? I think it's such an important step to ensure the quality.
Yeah, thank you, Holly. So we have a subcommittee of peer reviewers, which critically includes our one of our reference librarians to look at the permissions and citations and in the course. And but also we have a pretty extensive rubric that includes things like clarity, navigation, source quality, printability, because printing does become a big issue. One thing that helped us this just recently is to deal with the accessibility deadlines coming up. Holly and another committee arranged for us to get, as a college, get Panorama, which is an accessibility cleaner upper tool. And that has easy alternate printing for students of Canvas pages. That's great because before that, if someone didn't give them an alternate version, like a PDF version to print, they would just try to print the Canvas page and it just was a mess, right? So like something that you don't expect, like that there'll be an ICM benefit to it, that we have the accessibility problem, turned out to be a benefit. And now we're talking about like, how do we train all the students that they should use this, So it's really, it's complicated, right? Like, and all the time things come up that I didn't think of, or I was like, oh, now that's different than the problem I expected. But we find our way through it. And I think the most important thing, though, I can't emphasize is that upper level administrative support, even the lip service, like just talking about it and saying, hey, are you doing this? This is super exciting. Um, it just, that's what moved the needle. I could be excited as I wanted to, and I wasn't alone after a while, but it was just a few of us going, hey. So all that like structure really pushed it forward.
Thank you, Anne. So before we take questions from the audience, so Steph, Joan, and anything else you would like to add regarding OER at your institution?
I would add one thing. I think as we think about reducing students' cognitive load, and this is mentioned in the article that we shared that Joe and I were sort of interviewed just internally at our campus. Several things stick out to me about OER. One is students having to get the book. In some of the student surveys I've seen for community colleges, students talk about how they wait to get the book. One student talked about spending $750 on course materials for her courses for the first semester of community college, and finding out that most of those books actually weren't utilized a lot in the course. There were actually other study materials that were considered to be really effective and useful that were also considered required, but had low or no cost. So she was really puzzled why, there were texts that were required. And in the case that faculty do utilize the books, still, students are starting off in the beginning, sort of waiting to see if the textbook is actually going to be prominent in the course. So then they're delayed. So it's two things there. It's the burden of actually having to find the course text and find it at a good price. Because as you know, in the abyss of options that they have to order or rent or get a used copy or previous edition or all those things, there's a lot to do there as far as labor of finding the book at a price that is affordable. But then also this whole idea of I'm waiting to see what I actually need or not was something that I learned from reading student surveys that I didn't know was happening. And the instructors sort of think, this is a good resource or book to have, but students aren't sure. So we have to be more consistent in making it really clear what you really do need and what you don't need. And OER is a way of making it so they don't have to shop for a book. They don't have to wonder, do I need it? Do I not need it? And they have it right away. So I think that is something that we can do for students. So it's already enough to just register and figure out finances and schedules and all those things and get your semester started. This way we can eliminate some of that burden of getting started. And Joe always talks about something really great in terms of faculty do like to customize. So I don't know, Joe, if you want to talk about that at all, but I love it when you talk about that aspect because I think it appeals to a lot of faculty.
Sure, and I think this sounds like what Anne was talking about too, that some departments just want to make their own materials because they're just better. They're going to be customized, they're going to be tailored to your course. You can combine things from multiple different just from different sources and really get exactly the thing that you want, rather than just settling for whatever comes from the publisher. And the publishers like to advertise all of their customization options and the way they can publish books with different chapters, whatever. But this is far beyond what's possible there. The only other thing I would say, I know several of my colleagues I see in the participants are part of Illinois Open Education, which is a coordinating committee was just put together last fall to try to get some Illinois-wide coordination and collaboration around OER for colleges as well as universities. Through Carly, the Research Library Consortium is kind of who's in charge of it. And one of the things that we're working on, I'm on a data committee, and we're trying to put together some like a dashboard that not only tracks OER adoption, but has kind of like what Anne showed, like what classes are using which materials, and that has been really helpful at Harper to show faculty like here are the institutions that our students are transferring to. Here's Northern Illinois, University of Illinois, Northwestern, whoever, here's the OERs they're using for their courses. So like in terms of alignment, in terms of IAI, all that stuff, we could totally be using these same materials as our transfer institutions.
Thank you, Joe. So now let's open the floor for the questions.
So,
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say ditto again, but I'll even push it one level further. Students don't buy books and they use ICM anyway. And they're out there and they're just looking at whatever they can to try to figure out, because they're not going to buy the $300 text. So rather than that, why wouldn't we give them something that would be like a dependable source or something reasonable for them to look at? That's how I see it. I just even push it further. I think it makes us even look like we don't understand the internet, not to use sources that are available. And I keep saying the internet because for the most part, we're linking things and not printing books. Some people are, but that's not been the focus here. It's been things that are digitally available for the most part, which is why accessibility became such a big stumbling block for us. But anyway, thank you, Holly.
Thanks, Anne. I want to see whether our audience have some questions for our panelists. You may use the raise a hand the feature or type your question in the chat.
While they're typing, Holly, it was occurring to me too that I talked to community college people across the country about this whole dilemma of, should we have a bookstore? Should we buy into some corporate, overhead that provides open access to the students, but the students are paying? Should we build it into tuition, right? There's all kinds of things. And I think we want to be careful that we're not setting students up to be beholden to corporations and spending a lot of money that way too. So I think we're also interested in how people are, leveraging OER in that situation. But I do see we have a question now.
Yeah, we do. So maybe for Anne, I was from Joanna's. I was interested in the process of developing the rubric for peer review, how long that it took, who was involved, etc. Can you speak more to this process?
Yeah, so we're on right now. I'm making some revisions and it'll be our third version of it. The people involved, there were probably about maybe 6 or 7 people involved, and then there were like 5 people involved when we redid it. And we redid it just on the basis of, oh, we're not really using this part, we are using this part, things like that. But I'm trying to open it up right now so I can just like tell you the categories. It's a lot of categories, but you would get a quick idea. Copyright, adaptive, like are the materials adaptable, accessible, which we can remove now because everything has to be acceptable. Quality, accuracy, reference information, clarity, consistency, cultural, looking at any bias, openly licensed. Again, we were pretty concerned about rights and licensing. Presentation, including reading level, quality, organization, visual appeal, navigation, instructor resources. We do encourage people to put instructor resources in there because courses that are developed in the project have to be shared. So if you're going to share your course with another faculty member, then you might want to give them some hint of some of the rationale and organization. Peer review, that's for the course materials, had they been peer reviewed, which is not required, but it just is the thing we want to note. Hard copy and print options just improved dramatically with our panorama. And then convenience. Can they be downloaded for being read later? Are they opening on all different kinds of platforms? That's our rubric now. And the changes we have in mind are not huge. But there are a few categories that we don't hardly use, and there's some that we, use all the time. And I want to put this into categories where like licensing and permissions and copyright is one category. So just to make the rubric itself a little quicker to navigate. But those are the kind of things that are on it. So we're not talking about the course itself. We're talking about the materials for the most part. And when we are talking about navigation, we're talking about, is it easy for the students to find their way through the materials or get to them? Or, like often we say, oh, just put them in there 2 times, and make one page that's permissions so that if the student doesn't know where it is in the course, they can just go to that page. Things like that are what we're concerned about so that you're maximizing their utility for the students and just the ease of use.
So, Anne, could you also address who was involved in the review process?
Yeah, so for the most part, all of our committee are faculty, except for Holly, who's an administrator. And so I'm in the English department, and and we've always had one of the librarians. In fact, I think we've always had the same librarian. She's very interested in this project. Might even be in here for now, right now, for all I know. And then other faculty members, and we did everything at MCC. We always try to have like from across campus, so it's not everyone from one department. So right now I have one person from Allied Health, one from Administrative Office Management, who's the former chair. I've always been on the committee, so there's always been at least one from English. You know what loudmouths we are, so we're always in there wanting to think about how things are best written and everything. I'm trying to think. And the committee has been, I would also say, very stable. I wanted to argue for stipends for our peer reviewers. We used to have them, and then we kind of gave them up during COVID because there wasn't a lot of peer reviewing. And one of the points I made was like, we've mostly had the same peer reviewers we've had exactly the same ones for 2 years, and most of them for like 6 and 7 years. So we've had the same people on the committee for a while, but then we have some coming and going too. I got a new art faculty, graphic design and art. She's very helpful in things like, visual layout and stuff like this. To like 2 years ago, she joined the committee. And I got one from Allied Health, just came in last year. So there's some movement. But a lot of the same passionate people, stay on that committee. One person I worked with closely when this all started, like the second day our new president was on campus, he came to talk to me about this, and I was standing right next to a math faculty who I was very close to. And the math department at that time was kind of resistant of this, or she had always been like, oh, I don't think that's possible in math. Like now she's on my committee, and she is one of the top departments of making things. So I'm very grateful to people for testing it, trying it out, and then being convinced. I had one accounting faculty member who retired like 2 years ago, and she called me during the summer, and she said, I thought this was a horrible idea. And now that I know what it is, I've already built half my course. I'm like, wait, apply for a stipend, please. And then who took over her job? I was just speaking to him earlier today because he happens to be right next door in his office. And I said, hey, did you figure that out with your ICM course? Because he was concerned that about various things about it. And he's like, oh, I was worried for nothing. I've got it all figured out. Best news I've had in weeks on ICM. So yeah, sorry, I get a little passionate.
Thank you, Anne. Any other questions? Again, in the chat or raise hand from the reaction icon.
I could share this peer review too. We have shared it. I'm just making a few modifications now, but if you want it, just send me an email.
I guess one last thing I would say too about OER is although I know we are all working on digital accessibility with all kinds of materials, it seems to help if you're using Pressbooks or other materials that lend themselves to alternative formats and other ways to just interact with the materials. So obviously someone else could speak a little more high level to that, but I just get the sense that this is the direction we're going. It's no longer accessible or acceptable to just scan up anything and throw it in our shell, or expect people to be able to learn from a one-dimensional type of text. So this just seems like it's another good reason to put some energy toward OER.
We just had a question a couple days ago from somebody doing some revisions for accessibility and asking about math, and being able to say, if you've got your math in a Pressbooks book, it's in MathML, it's accessible, screen readers can use it, as opposed to like a scanned PDF, and just to have that solution a lot of times is really helpful.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions?
Thanks everyone for coming. I have scanned through the participant list and I see many of our colleagues from MCC. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just want to say supportive people, yay.
Yes, thank you.
Will. Actually, I would like to thank the three of our panelists, Anne, Joe, and Stephanie. Thank you for sharing what your institution has been doing, and also the very impressive, inspiring stories our faculty have achieved. That's amazing. Let's give them a round of thanks and applause in the chat, a text, or a reaction, whichever format you are available to give. Thank you, our panelists.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of housekeeping items. I'm going to put up the slides again. Our schedule for this week is now on the screen. A reminder, our next session is tomorrow morning at 10. It's a supporting OER in Illinois through the OER Commons and the Open Illinois Hub. So please attend. And also there are other exciting sessions in tomorrow afternoon, and also goes to Wednesday. So again, the conference recordings will be available on the EOCO site under resources and events. If you have more questions, please email jeff.newell@illinois.gov. Thank you all for coming and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.